Hello, it's Saturday, and I have a surprise. Oh, that's shiny. It's Beastgrave. Games Workshop were lovely enough to send me an early copy of Beastgrave. So, here it is. End of video. Not really. Haha, I'm so funny. Let's have a look inside. Now, I have actually already opened this. This is not really an unboxing. As much as a box looking. So, standard, if you've had a Underworlds starter set before, standard deal. 2 boards. We have rulebook, which is significantly thicker than previous rulebooks. We have some tokens, of which I have popped out a few, as I already have a copy of Warhammer Underworlds. Most of the tokens I already needed, I already have. I popped out some of the new objectives, which you can see here, new objectives. And some of the new wound tokens, because the wound tokens are now double-sided, so that you can use them as just kind of generic markers for specific things. I'm just going to change my exposure here a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that's better. It's not bleaching out quite as much. So yes, these are the wound tokens. So now one side is a wound, the other side is just a token marker, because some mechanics require putting tokens on fighter cards and then using them later. So I popped something out because we didn't have anything that really worked for it, and if you have 2 sets of wound tokens on your cards, then it gets confusing. There were also lethal hex markers. You get 2 of them. Popped them out because you can use those. Otherwise, it's all the same markers as the other versions of Underworlds, so there's not a lot specific there. Oops. We have instructions for assembling the models. Already done that. Yeah, by Age of Sigmar. 3 chapters for a book. Learn to play rules. Again, standard learn to play rules. And then we have the cards. Here are the sprues for the models. You can see that the Beastmen come on brown, and the not Wood Elves come on green, same colour green as the Sylvaneth, actually, which I thought was interesting for about 5 seconds. Set of dice, again, you get 1 set of attack dice, 1 set of defense dice, and 1 set of magic dice. I already have nicer dice than those. And then you get the cards. So, again, standard deal, you get 2 pre-made decks, which are these. So 2 pre-made decks, 1 for the not Wood Elves, 1 for the Beastmen. My favourite thing is they gave you a bunch of baggies. These are not my baggies, these were in the box. So they gave you a bunch of baggies so that you could put your tokens and your cards, so you can fit all the cards you get in the box into baggies. So once you take them out of the cellophane, they're not just lying around. You don't have to provide your own baggies anymore. This is good. I mean, eventually one day these will go into a folder. I'll have to start a 3rd folder of Warhammer Underworlds cards. But for now, baggies. Very good. I'm not going to go through all of the cards because they've been spoiled on the Warhammer community site. And so if you want to see them, it's just better to go there. And yeah, that's pretty much it in here, because I've already assembled the models. What is different in this edition? Not a lot, really. The rules have been clarified, like all of the FAQ rulings are in there. There's a lot of good clarifications that have gone on. Some things that I wasn't always 100% sure about are naturally handled in the rulebook now. So it's generally much better. This has resulted in a thicker rulebook, because it's got, you know, all of the edge cases that have come up in tournaments over the years are sorted in there. the additions to gameplay mechanics. All objectives can be flipped over via text on cards, and the non-objective-y side of an objective is always a lethal hex. That was it. That was interesting. However, we haven't actually used any cards that flip objectives over yet around here, so I'm not sure about that. If you're standing if you're standing on an objective and it gets flipped over, you do not take damage because you are not entering into a lethal hex. That is explicitly pointed out in the rules. So you can't just suddenly flip an objective over and kill someone that was stood on top of it who only had 1 wound left. It doesn't work like that. But it does mean that I think they're getting away from the cards that remove objective tokens from the board in favour of flipping them over. So you know, it means that they're still there, but you can, if you also have a card that flips over, you can flip it back to the right side so that you can then score it later. I think that's a good change, if that is indeed what they're going for. It makes it a bit fairer. It means you can actually like put a card in your deck so that you can kind of counteract people doing that to you if you've got a heavily like holding objectives deck going on. So there's that one change. The other change is the hunter keyword, which is not really like a Beastgrave thing. You know, if you've played Night Vault on the Nighthaunt Warband, some of them were classified as being chain ghasts, and some of them weren't. It's basically like that. On their card, it just says Hunter underneath their name, and any card that says it can be played on a Hunter, therefore works with that card. Now there's Hunters going to be in all the Warbands that are coming up in this season, and so therefore it's kind of a slightly more universal thing. There are universal cards with the Hunter keyword referenced on it. I wouldn't really say it's a gameplay mechanics. It mostly makes the people in your warband who would normally be a bit rubbish a bit better if you put cards in your power deck in order to be able to buff them. I think this is to try and counteract the fact that most warbands were just designed around making one person, usually your leader, an absolute monster and having them rampage around the board killing everyone. In this case, you can build a deck where it goes, well, I'm focusing on making all of the little boys in my warband potentially dangerous, rather than just focusing on the one guy. So if you kill my leader, I'm not completely screwed. Don't know how that's going to play out yet. So far, all of the Hunter cards I've used have been pretty situational. There's basically been like this new snare card is Trap again, but only works if a Hunter triggers it. Things like that. Okay, so in the rulebook we have spoiled for us. Say spoiled. The Grimwatch. Some text there. Which are basically flesh-eater courts, ghouls. Probably with a bit of an Empire theme going on in the background. And Rippers Snellfangs, who have been spoiled already. As near as I can tell, and I've only really skimmed this, no other warbands are explicitly spoiled in the text inside the rulebook, in the lore. The cards have got some warbands on them, but the Ironjaws look exactly like the Ironjaws that we've already had from Season 1. So unless they're re-releasing them, then I don't think that's actually necessarily spoiling a warband. And the other art is really like open for interpretation as to what it actually will be. But I expect a lot of people on Destruction will show up. So probably ogres. But you know, Nagash is definitely making an appearance via the Flesh Eater Courts. So that's one to look forward to. And they'll probably be the next two. So it'll be Snellfangs, Rippers, and the Grimwatch will be coming out first. And then the next 4 after that will be slightly more up in the air and he's later on. Let's have a look at some models. Okay. So, here is the leader of the Beastmen. Brown plastic, as you can see. Still push fit. Still everything is push fit. Fair amount of cleanup required on the Beastmen and the not Wood Elves. To be honest, I think the Beastmen models are good. They're very good Beastmen models, but I think the Wood Elf models are better. Aesthetically, I much prefer those. I'm probably only going to paint one of these guys, either this guy or his second in command, Draknar. But they're kind of, it's very difficult to tell some of them apart, because there's a couple of the Ungors have either a flint axe or a flint knife, and they have different stat lines. But otherwise the models are practically identical. Like, it's really difficult to tell them apart until you painted them. So you'll want to put something on their base so that you can tell them apart at a glance. So that's Draknar. And yeah, there's some mold lines in some slightly annoying places on these guys, and definitely some injection ports in some annoying places on those. Korsh the Sneak here, one of the more memorable models, but mostly because he's holding a big stick. He's he can sneak across the board by moving via the magical realms of edge hexes. If he starts his activation on an edge hex, he can teleport to any other edge hex and get a charge token in return. Which means that unless you've got power cards that can activate him once activate him in the power phase, then he's generally not going to be doing much once he's snuck somewhere. So I've been saving him for like the last activation of a round, and then trying to hope my opponent just kind of ignores him and then move him onto one of the objectives in their territory at the end. Yeah, you can see some more of the injection gates that are in slightly annoying places. Right on the end of the weapon there, for example. Under the arms, I haven't cleaned this guy up at all, so you can see where they are. On the side of the head, that's a really annoying one. Just super annoying. The Beastmen aren't glued together, they're just push fit together. I've glued together the Wood Elves though. So yeah, it's one of the more memorable models. Only 2 health though. It's kind of rubbish. Very easy to kill. Most of my Ungors were getting 1 shot in my games. Unless I managed to roll very lucky on my defense dice, and you've got to be very, very lucky. So this is the other spear guy. Mostly just use this guy for getting support on attacks or for getting in the way, but mostly he just kind of gave up glory. Again, another injection point on the side of the face and under the armpits. I mean, under the armpits is one of the less noticeable places, but the side of the face is kind of annoying. And we've got the 2 Ungors with the bows. So this is, I think it's Gnarl with the flint axe. And again, injection ports right at the top of the arms there. Back of the neck, elbow. And these aren't bad places to have them, but they haven't been able to hide them on the Beastmen quite that much. So you've got a fair amount of cleanup with these ones. I have been able to do some fun things because I've been able to hit people with the bow, knock them back into a lethal hex, and then drop a snare on them at the same time. And get 3 damage out of a 1 damage short bow, which has been pretty good. That was fun. Killed the Wood Elf leader that way. And here's the other one. This is whatever the other one is called with the flint knife. For some reason I can't remember this guy's name. But yeah, the knife is like here on the thing. You can't really tell, like from behind when you're playing in the brown plastic, and they're quite far apart. It's really difficult to tell at a glance which one's which. So that's the Beastmen models. They're good for plastic Beastmen, but I don't think they're the best looking models aesthetically in the kit. I think these are. Finally, we have a centaur. Basically. So I think this guy is the star of the show in the same way that the Briar Queen was the star of the show of the Night Vault. I think this guy is absolutely the star of the show in terms of Beastgrave. It's absolutely gorgeous little sculpt. Needs some gap filling on the back here, like where the two halves of the horse body join. You'll need to do some gap filling there with a bit of putty and some filing on the underside to sand that down. I mean, it is on the underside, so you might not care about it that much. These armor plates on here, separate, so they can be removed. This shield can be quite easily removed. Heck, even the hair could be painted separately if you wanted, because the hair is all one piece that is separate from the head. The arm, however, does have a big old join and a big gap right there that you probably need to gap fill in order to make it smooth. And the underarm as well. And I've done the normal thing of trimming the plugs on these, so just cutting the ends off to make them fit a bit better, and even then there's still gaps. So it's fairly standard push-fit Underworlds kit problems in terms of assembly. There's significant gap filling required in order to make them look good, but aesthetically these guys are great. And this guy's a monster. Absolute monster. He's got a huge threat range on the very first turn of the game, with a range 3 spear javelin attack and movement 5. Just nowhere is safe. A very common thing to do with him was to have him charge, chuck his spear at someone, and knock them into a lethal hex that you've placed behind them during setup. So that was a very common opening gambit, and if it's only 1 damage on the spear on the javelin attack. But these ungors all have like 2 hit points, so you can quite easily get a glory on the first activation of the game just with this guy, because getting to one of those ungors in the backfield that's supposed to be holding the objective, not that hard. Don't think it's great speed, but there's a movement upgrade in this card, so it's +2 movement. Give him movement 7, which has basically got a 10 hex threat range. Use the power card to get his javelin back. You can throw it again. Use some other cards to buff it up in damage. Absolutely nasty. Can't use the snare card because he's not a hunter, but is very, very nasty fighter. I was really struggling to actually hold my ground against this guy. I took a concerted effort and all of my activations to be able to drop him in one game. And once he was off the board, things became a lot fairer. But until then, yeah. And that's with the starter decks that they give you out of the box. We haven't tried deck building our own out of the Beastgrave cards yet, because there's not very many of them. This is Horn Guy, or Duty McDuterson. And in our first game, he died before he got to blow his horn, due to some poor setup choices. But after that, we're not sure about the wording on his card. It's where he blows his horn, and then the next time you attack, you have to remove the token, whether or not you actually chose to reroll any dice or not. That wording seems a little bit vague to me. We interpreted it as the attack occurs, and therefore you must remove the token from his card, rather than if you chose to reroll any dice, you remove the token. If it was that one, it would be a lot more useful, because if you choose not to reroll any dice, you've still got the token on his card. Whereas with the ritual tokens on the Beastmen, you can always just choose not to react, because it's actually a reaction. This guy's thing is not a reaction, so it just seems like something that you have to use, which means that sometimes you can waste it on an attack that just monstered its dice rolls. and then you've basically just wasted an activation and you haven't achieved anything. So that's a thing. But it's a lovely model with the satyr leggies. They go together very strangely. Much easier to clean up these ones than the Beastmen. A lot less mold lines in weird places and injection ports in weird places. This guy. Again, I kind of wish Wood Elves had always looked like this, to be honest. So I'm hoping we get a whole army of these guys in this style. That would be pretty boss. This guy is actually a lady. This is a gal. I just realised. There. But yeah, looking good. These are absolutely lovely. The pose is nice and dynamic compared to the Beastmen, who are mostly kind of static. There's a lot of movement in them, and it's very easy to tell each of them apart at a glance. But because they're more dynamic poses, they're slightly harder to paint than usual. For example, you can clearly see in there, but actually getting your paintbrush in to paint that will be pretty tricky. So if you can remove this arm, and it should be able to remove that without creating a gap that you'll have to fill later. Take that arm off before painting this guy. And big old pond with a ripple in it. That's cool. Nice effect there going on. And of course the kitty cat, which is a lot smaller than I thought it would be. It is a very small cat. Again, the same issue as with pretty much all quadruped bodies, is that there's usually a big gap down the back that you need to try and file down and gap fill, because it will look really, really unnatural. It does not look like the dip of a spine at all. It just looks like a big gap in some plastic. So try and fill that if you can. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We played 2 games last night, and it's Warhammer Underworlds. It's the same game. If you didn't like playing Warhammer Underworlds before, you're not going to like playing Beastgrave more. You know, it's not going to swing you around to the new way of playing. It's still very much a competitive game with tournament type rules and setup going on. There's no rules for campaigns other than just ladder campaigns, which are that's more of kind of a long-running store tournament thing. But there's no rules for like narrative campaigns. There's no draft mode for building your decks or anything like that over the course of several games. There's nothing like that going on. So if you're more interested in the role-playing or kind of narrative aspect of gaming, again, Warhammer Underworld hasn't changed. It's still a competitive tournament type game, and that's probably never going to change, to be honest, unless they bring out an expansion for it. Most of the cards in the starter set are pretty much the same as cards in all the previous starter sets. In some cases, just exact reprints. The wording on Confusion has changed. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's a good update. The models are nice, and that's what I'm more concerned about than the actual game, because we don't get to play very often, and we only play here. I don't play in tournaments, so you'll want someone else to tell you about whether or not it's good for tournament play and what this means, and what the impact of all the Season 1 Universals disappearing means. As far as I'm concerned, I'm really looking forward to painting these guys. I think they're going to be a lot of fun to paint, and I'm going to be painting one of the Beastmen, because I just want to paint a Beastman, and then I'm pretty much done with them. I'm probably not going to paint the whole Warband. Also, because they seemed weaker than this Warband to me on first impressions. And I still love my orcs, and I can still use them, so I'm still going to keep using them. So there we go. That's it. Beastgrave. It's up for pre-order now. I'll be having painting tutorials on this chap and one of the Beastmen going up over the next couple of weeks. They'll be going straight up onto YouTube, not going straight first to Patreon. because Games Workshop did give me this for freeze in order to review it. And yeah, so keep an eye out for those. Also, you can give me a follow on Instagram. Links to all my social medias and such are down in the description. And you can go and check out my progress on this stuff. I do have some commissions to finish before I get on this, but as soon as I've done that, I'll be getting on. I'm not necessarily going to be doing the rest of the Warhammer Underworlds warbands for this season, but I will be doing these ones from the starter set. So there you go, thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. There's more content, more video tutorials and so on, and I would do a vlog every Wednesday, so you can subscribe for that. Hit that bell, leave a comment below. Are you excited about Season 3 of Warhammer Underworlds, or do you just want the models? Like I do. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye.